Hey guys, what's going on? So this video goes out to everybody who loves Boreas. I shit on Boreas every chance that I get. I think that Boreas Grindstone is a very beginner thing to do. Grindstone made Boreas a lot better, but I still don't think that it's great. This is a Boreas DPS deck that, in my head, I was joking that, I had just beaten Max Tesla Clock, and then my next battle was against this deck. And I was joking in my head. I was like, what is this dumb, jokey deck, right? I'm gonna beat this super easily, and I just, whenever I go into my games, I focus on my own game. I don't really pay attention to what's necessarily happening on the board, because I don't play an interaction type game. I'm just trying to do as much damage as I can do. So I'm like really unaffected by what the other person is doing. And then this game just kept going and going and going. And I saved you a bunch of time by skipping right to double bosses. So we're gonna jump right into this game, like just mid game. And this is a Boreas DPS deck. And if you are one of those Boreas is the best card ever, kinds of people that are still playing Boreas Grindstone, I'll tell you what, maybe this is something for you to aspire to. If you really love Boreas, maybe you might want to think about this deck. Now, I'm gonna play this, and I'm gonna talk through it a little bit, so that I can explain why this is so good, and that this is a very difficult deck to obtain. But if you have all the pieces, you can do a lot of damage, apparently. And this was incredibly shocking to me. So here we go. I'm admittedly playing a jokey version of my Bloomy Dash Blade Dancer deck. I'm running Vampire that I almost never get to use, because the modifier is just debuffing me and buffing me so often throughout this game that I'm just, there's so much happening on the field that I'm having to upgrade my Blade Dancers and then downgrade and then they get downgraded and I have to upgrade them, or my Blade Dancer will get upgraded, but then my Portal Keeper will get downgraded. It was a mess. This whole game was a mess. But I still thought that I would win. Essentially, this is what's happening in this game. He has a max Boreas. He's using Second Breath, which is the obvious one to use. Don't use the activation one. Activations are usually much worse than just things that have the ability to be passive abilities. So the 35% chance, I completely agree with. The sleep arrows, I question. I think that the shower of arrows might be better, but maybe he's using sleep arrows because it's really good against Mermaid. And most people run Mermaid, and so if you can keep knocking out their shields and theoretically giving them the 20% chance, or slowing their attack by 25% for 10 seconds, it can be good. Precise shooting is obviously the best, and then the final talent, which speeds up your opponent's monsters. He's using Trapper. He's using Enchant Sword. Enchant Sword is max. Eternal Gaze is the best thing. So he has the ability to just leave the one that he has on the field, and then just keep merging out the other ones. And he doesn't even run a lot of Boreases. He has 3 Boreases, and he's just wrecking. The Trapper is obviously going to give him slow, which you can argue at the end of the game that is what allowed him to win, as opposed to Boreas itself. But he also has, and this is the most important thing, he has a level 20 J. But maybe even more importantly, he also has the J item, which gives him an extra wind speed tile, and then it gives bonuses to all the other things as well. He has Max Spear, which is also going to help because it also increases his speed. J increases his speed. The Ring gives him an extra tile, so he has 5 tiles on the board. 2 of them are on the Boreases that he's been building all game. And then, most importantly, to make this deck actually work and actually be a competable deck, he has a Counterspell. He's technically running double Counterspell. He has a Counterspell 1 over here and a Counterspell 2 over here. This one is set to Forest Faction. This one doesn't have Forest Faction. And then he has a Pocket Curse. Pocket Curse doesn't really come into play, but the fact that he has a Max Spear is obviously going to come into play as well. The amount of speed that you're getting with both Boreas' regular attack, which is what makes Grindstone so good, but also the J tile, the Max Spear, and then having the growth tile so that he can do bonus damage, and then having the Counterspell so that he can run J, so that he doesn't need, because Boreas doesn't have any inherent way to get rid of debuffs, so Counterspell might actually be one of the most important things, but everything is important for this deck to work. You have to have the Max Boreas, you have to have the Max Spear, you have to have the Max J, you have to have, like, there's so many things that you have to make this deck work, or to make it even kind of viable, to where you're going into triple bosses and you're still wrecking. Yeah, and, spoiler alert, he beats me. And now you can say, like, he does have 500% more crit, but this is the thing about YouTube videos, and it's the second thing that I want to go into. The easiest YouTube video to make, the easiest Rush Royale YouTube video to make, is to do a splashy thumbnail and to state something that is technically true. Like, I beat Max Demon Hunter with my Fire Mage deck, right? And you have like 5,000 crit, and you went up against a Demon Hunter with 1,000 crit, right? So technically, yes, you beat them with Fire Mage, but you also beat them with the crit, right? You beat them with the crit percentage. But there's a certain point that I think where that might be true, but at the same time, like, a Fire Mage shouldn't beat a Max Demon Hunter, even if there's a crit difference, right? Because Fire Mage can only do so much. You can only pump it so much. You can only perfect play so much. This deck, even though he has 500% more crit, and it's arguably like just a worse deck, it beat me. And I think that there is something to be said about a deck that has, you know, more, even though it has more crit, if it is like, quote unquote, objectively worse, and it still beats you, I think there's something to be said about that. You can't just say, like, I can't just say, oh, well, he only won because he had 500% more crit, right? That seems kind of ridiculous. It is a factor, but I think that if you objectively have, like, a better deck, like a Blooming Dash Blade Dancer deck is better than a Max Boreas deck, like, and it beats you, there's something to be said about that. And I'm fully here to agree with the idea that, wow, he beat me. Like, maybe this deck is kind of okay. Maybe this deck is somewhat fine. My Knight Statue gets, like, debuffed so many times, and I had to keep using all of my things to upgrade. I was just getting screwed the whole time throughout this game. This is the moment where he good games me, because he's pretty sure he's gonna die. If you look at, like, his side of the board, and you notice that it's triple bosses already, the fact that this is going into triple boss territory is insanity. And this was when I realized, I was like, wait a second, am I gonna lose? And yeah, that's what happens. You can argue that Trapper is what really saved him, and it's not that Boreas is good, and it's that, you know, he just slowed, you know, better than you did. But it's like, no, like, I should have been dealing so much more damage, and the fact that he was able to do that much damage is nutty. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, this deck only works for all of the factors that I just listed. It's not just because of the Max it's not just because it's a Boreas deck. It's because it's a Max Boreas deck. It's because it's a Max J deck. It's because it's a Max Spear deck. It's because he has double Counterspell. Or just more importantly, he has the Counterspell 2 on a Forest Faction, which is what Boreas is. he has the wind speed tile, which gives him an extra tile. So that gives him an extra ability to get an extra Boreas down on another J tile and do even more damage. His J is what deals most of the damage here. Most of the damage here. His level 20 J is doing 2.2 billion damage. Whereas even Boreas is doing 1.7 billion damage. And like when you compare it to like my Blade Dancer, who is my only damage dealer, and that's doing 3.6, his J is doing that amount of damage. And it's I don't know. Like if you like Boreas, if that is your cup of tea, if you love Boreas Grindstone, if that is like your deck that you love running, I would certainly try to invest in this. Because apparently it's kind of okay.